welcome to Retrotainment. Back again with my co-host, capital C, capital O, Greg. How are you doing, buddy?
What's happening, homie?
Nothing much. This week we've decided to take a trip to New York and stay in a nice hotel, pretty posh, you know.
The old Dolphin Hotel.
Dolphin Hotel is quite posh, you know. Big rooms.
2254 Lexington Avenue.
Yeah, that's the one. And we're going to stay in room 1408. I was saying to you before we started, the reason I picked up this film was that it was horror and Sam Jackson, and I was like, that it has to be good. There's no way that this can be bad. Like horror, Sam Jackson, and then I never even noticed the director on it.
Well, the writer.
I would say the writer of the where the film came from, being Stephen King. Genuinely never noticed that.
Yeah, I said to you before coming on, I got it as I think I mixed it up with 1922, which they obviously hadn't made yet.
Yeah.
And I obviously just went 1-on-1, and that's it there.
Yeah, there's some numbers. I'll take that.
That'll do.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Released on the 12th of June, 2007. Again, a bit of a weird time to release this. June. Obviously just hitting the summer blockbuster, but I would have thought they'd have held off till kind of a bit closer.
Something else might have been coming out again. Can't quite pinpoint 2007.
Yeah.
Something must have been coming out.
Yeah, and then as always, we take a quick look at the ratings. This one is slightly different to most ratings. So 175 critics gave it 79% overall.
For a horror movie, that's pretty good.
It's quite good. And then the audience was 61%, which is a rarity. We normally see higher audience and lower critic.
Yeah, well, we generally know why the audience didn't know, because Sam Jackson didn't have his infamous line.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's why. I didn't look into it, but I would imagine that's why audiences didn't like it.
I think a lot of this is it's not just a horror movie you can sit down and watch. There's a story to it that you have to follow.
Yeah, it's less of a horror in the general sense of a horror. It's a
mind.
It's a psychological thriller,
Yeah, it's I really enjoyed this though. You get the horror movies. It's like The Shining. Even when you take that, you see his descent into madness.
Yeah, I think it comes obviously it's Stephen King, but it looks like he's taken a lot from The Shining. And
well, I don't know which book came first. I'd imagine The Shining.
Yeah, I think I got to imagine The Shining did, but it looks like he took a lot of that and used it for.
He just smushed everything.
Canon for the fuel for this. It did well in the box office, 133 million, which is quite good for a horror. This would have been Sam Jackson. I was going to say at his peak, but I suppose technically now is his peak.
Now would
really.
Be. Well, then again, he hasn't had a drop off really. He's done bad movies, fine. He throws his name into it, but when you look at him, it's generally good movies all the time.
Yeah, see, I was going to say,
he has a mix of bad movies. He done all right. I enjoy Snakes on a Plane, but it's not a great movie.
Yeah, it's not a good film. It's enjoyable because it's Sam Jackson and it's funny, but
yeah, but he throws himself into those movies, and he does a lot of voice acting in the likes of he's in The Incredibles and things like that. But does he have a peak? No, it's just a high level. It's like Denzel.
Yeah,
it's just at a consistently high level.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like he hasn't gone away either. You know, sometimes you'll see someone and they'll be around for ages and then they won't make a film for a couple of years or whatever, and that just doesn't seem to have been the way with Jackson.
No, I think he has that love for acting, really. Overall. He just continues on. As you said there, it made 133 million in box office. It only cost him 25 million to make.
Yeah, and I'm surprised at how cheap it is to have made this.
Well, when you think about it, apart from obviously the special effects on the room, you're only paying 30 staff. Theoretically.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I see. That's kind of the thing. I don't know when they talk about cost of making. Do they take into account what they paid Sam Jackson and what they paid the likes of
Michael Cusack,
John Cusack and stuff like that? Yeah,
John Cusack, yeah.
Cusack. John Cusack, yeah. I don't know if that gets counted in, but there is quite a lot of special effects in this.
Yeah, and don't forget they have the monk in there as well.
Yeah. So I don't know if they include that in their evaluation of what it costs to make it, or if the budget is just this is what the set cost, the design cost, special effects. I've never looked into that. Maybe other people would know, but that's a box office hit one way or the other, you know.
Well, once you make money, it's fine.
Yeah, it's a really good starting in this, and that we see Mike in his kind of beaten down car driving in horrible weather, and he pulls into this crappy little hotel, and you can tell from the start that, you know, it's not really that haunted, but you can see why he thinks the way he thinks, because the owners are like, oh yeah, it's haunted, and they really want to sell the story to him, and he's just I don't care, I want to go to my room.
I want my key. Now with this here, the start of this is very similar to nearing the end of Identity, which also has Cusack in it. Where they're leaving, and he's in a car like that or something like that, and it's thundering down with rain, and like I hadn't seen this in a long time, and when I watched it again, I only watched Identity there not so long ago. I was looking at it going, I've seen this before.
maybe it's all one big life, and we don't know. Maybe.
Well, I hope not, because
I don't think so either. But he goes in, and they're determined to sell him this story of how haunted they are, and we learn that what his job is that he writes books of, you know, the 10 most haunted houses, the 10 most haunted hotels, the 10 most haunted lighthouses, and this, that, and the other. But that he has no belief in any of this.
Oh, zero, absolutely zero.
Like, he just doesn't believe in it at all, and he just does it because it's his job.
Out of it.
Yeah.
But I love how pushy she is. She's like, look at this picture taken by a girl in the 70s or the 80s, and there's a shadow hanging behind glass, and you're like, that could be anything.
I like that he you know, you see that he does drink in each, like, that's the first one we see him in, and he takes the mini bar and he is drinking the drinks and stuff.
Yeah.
So he obviously does try. Yeah, well, he obviously tries to get himself into the frame of mind where he would believe, because he knows personally he doesn't believe.
Yeah, he's trying to do something.
Yeah, he's trying to make it so that he might believe some of it. And that place, you see him in the car, and he's just like, no, that wasn't scary at all.
The funniest thing there is, though, he drives by it, and you see him doing a U-E in the middle of the road.
Yeah, because it's just so small.
Yeah.
And then we see him doing the book signing, and, you know, there's only a few people there, and they're asking questions like, and do you believe all of it? And he's like, he basically tells them, like, no, I don't believe in it. It's complete and utter crap. Like,
what was it your man says to him? Where was the scariest place you've stayed? And he's like, I've never seen a ghost. So
yeah, and then he tells the other lad what I think is somewhere in like a theme park.
It is, yeah. The Haunted Mansion is in Disneyland. It's, you know, the Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah. That's he's just, there you go. That's the scariest place. And you can see your one when she's getting the book signed, being like, I've been conned here.
Yeah.
What I do like is that the young girl Anna comes up and gives him the book, the first book he ever wrote, The Long Road Home. And what I liked here is that they've made it so that it's well thumbed. You can see the break on the spine and on the
it's been
cover,
read, and
that it's been like bent over because she's holding it like that and reading it. I really liked that, because it's something that a lot of times you don't see. Like, people are like, oh yeah, I've read this book loads, and you're like, no, that book looks pristine. Nobody's been reading that. And she just says, oh, I really love this, and would you ever write something like this again? And he just says no.
Then they try, and she tries to, like, can I ask you a question? And she's talking about the relationship between the son and the father in the book. Yeah. It's like, is it authentic? No. But you can tell by his answer.
It is, yeah. See, what I like there is that it gives you prelude to, like, they never tell you what that book is really about, but it tells you that it's not the same as these other ones, that it's more him talking about
it's a story,
his personal life, and it's, you know, this is stuff that's happened and it's real.
So, you know, when he finishes talking to her and he says to her, stay scared.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is a little throw from Stephen King to George A. Romero. Because apparently if you talk to George A. Romero, that's all he says when he's finishing a conversation. Doesn't say goodbye or anything. It's just stay scared.
It's a good way to end a conversation, I suppose, if that's the business you're in.
Well, when you're the single greatest zombie director on the planet, you're not doing too badly. Well, he was on this planet, he's not anymore.
Yeah. Well, but, you know, that's that's the way to end it.
I like the little throws in it though that he does, because obviously him and Stephen King were really close apparently.
Yeah, well, two of the biggest horror
icons.
Well, I don't know if they're the horror icons. They're horror writers more than anything, I suppose. Like, I know they are iconic in that people know them, but
George A. Romero was a director.
Yeah, but like they're involved in
he has his hands in everything.
Like they're in the back of it. Whereas you'd say a horror icon is probably more someone like Freddy or Jason. No, they're the
I know what you mean.
Sort of thing. Yeah, I like the scene where he goes to like the little post office here now, and he takes out all the mail he's got, and it's mostly just brochures of people who want them to. Yeah, because he makes a point of saying a little bit later on, he's like, you want me to come stay because it increases your revenue,
bookings.
It goes up. But he kind of skips through most of the brochures, and then it's just this card that he turns over, a postcard, and it just says "Don't stay in 1408" on the back of it.
Well, no, he opens the one that has his birthday card in it first.
Yeah, and just doesn't care about it.
It's just a random one, like.
Yeah, just happy birthday. Don't care about it. But that just shows the kind of person he is. Like, he just doesn't care about. He has no personal.
Yeah, you never actually do find out who David really is, though.
I always assumed it was his dad when I first saw it, but like then I don't think it is, because we see his dad later on, and it's.
Unless the only other thing I can think of is the publisher's real name.
Yeah, but it's obviously someone he's just like, I don't care who this is, sort of thing. But we see him rummaging through them, and then he comes to the one "Don't stay in 1408," and he circles it and equals 13. I thought that was a nice little touch, because obviously 13 is the horror number. Yeah.
Well, this is the one that I have here for you, right? So the title 1408 equals 13.
Yeah.
The Lexington Boulevard 2254 is 13.
And what's that from? Oh,
the address of the hotel.
Yeah.
The number on the key that he gets when he goes to the hotel, 6214.
Yeah.
Equals 13. The year of the first death in the hotel, 1912, equals 13. And then the release date, they released it in June of 2007. So 0607.
Yeah, 13 as well.
13.
See, the only thing I think there is that they should have held off. Like, they released it on the 12th of June. They should have held off for an extra day. But I'm wondering, was that a mistake? There's also he looks at it in that sense. Like, that's the first thing he notices, 1408, and he's like 13. Like, that's the first thing he notices about it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's just the little touches that are in it. Like, for whatever, you could just leave it at that and that'd be it.
What I did notice is that, and they don't really go into it, it looks like it's an actual postcard, because it's not like, we know that all the other brochures are from the proprietors of the hotels and stuff that want him to stay there.
Yeah, this is someone sending it to him.
Somebody else sent him this.
Yeah.
But the hotel, the Dolphin Hotel, doesn't advertise that 1408 is haunted.
No, they don't even advertise it as a room.
Yeah, so they don't advertise it, so we know it's not the hotel that sent it.
So it's the entity that's inside it. So it's left to you, or someone that wants to punish him.
It's somebody that knows he'd go to it and knows the history of it, which I like, because they never reference that really. It's just something that's just left there for you to recognize. You're like, oh, now where did he get that from? Because it's a postcard, and a postcard's not going to have that written on it,
Yeah,
somebody wrote that there.
It's thing, and then you think, is it someone in the hotel? Is it just left?
Yeah, it's just left to your imagination. Like, was it the room, or what was it?
No, I wouldn't mind actually getting my hand on the book to read it and see if it goes into it more.
Yeah, it would be nice to see if the book explains
it. I wouldn't think it would, because Stephen King's notorious for just leaving those to you. Like, he leaves it for you to think. Is that what you want to see?
I think that's always good as well. But once he gets this letter, he rings up the hotel and tries to book the room, and they're like, that room is not available. Yeah, and he gives them.
He's like, I didn't even give you a date.
So he says, like, Saturday, not available. The following Tuesday, not available. Next month, not available.
Next summer.
And they just hang up. And then he gets in contact with the publisher, publisher, and he gets a legal guy in, and he's like, yeah, they can't.
not a legal guy. I don't care. He's just some guy that works there, and he's like, just go with it.
Yeah, and he's like, listen, they can't tell you can't stay there.
If it's empty, you can get it. Yeah, legally you can get it.
So he shows up to the hotel. Well, actually, before he goes to the hotel, he goes surfing and nearly drowns.
He got smashed up.
Yeah. But he seems to just recover from that and then makes his way to the hotel.
Yeah.
And he goes up.
Nice looking hotel, to be fair.
It's a great hotel, really, really expensive looking, proper.
Yeah, right, bang. Huge, looks like bang in the middle of New York.
Yeah, and he goes up to the reception. He's like, yeah.
Well, even just before that, before we go too far, is when he's on the phone to the publisher asks him, are you going to be all right coming to New York?
Yeah.
And then he asks him, are you going to ring Lily? Is it Lily? Yeah, Lily.
Lily, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm only here for a job.
Yeah.
So that's then left to you.
Yeah, what happened there? Why would he not be okay with going to New York?
Yeah, and it delves in a little bit deeper as we go on.
Yeah, but he goes up to the reception. Can I get the room I'm here to rent the room for the night.
Yeah.
And your one types it in and a big thing comes up. Contact the manager. So she goes to this guy who you think is the manager. And then he goes off and gets the actual manager.
I'd say he is the manager, the shift manager, and then
then the hotel manager is obviously Gerald Olin, Big Sam, Gerald Olin. And he comes out and we've actually upgraded you to the presidential suite. He's like, nope, I want to stay in 1408. And he's like,
I like how professionally is. You can tell that it's like, I know he's in the acting, but like that's how a proper hotel manager probably would go about that.
Yeah, but you can see how much he really wants him to, and he's like, listen, come on into my office and we'll have a
would you enlighten me to come into my office or something?
So he goes into the office and he's like, listen, you cannot stay in that room. And he's like, I want to stay in that room. And he's like, listen, here's all. And he starts to list off the debts. And Mike reels them off as well. And he's like, I see you've done your homework. And he's like, listen, we both know you're going to give me the key. You're going to pretend you don't want me to have it. Then you're going to give me the key. Then I'm going to write my book. And your bookings are going to go up 50%.
What I like here is, though, when he does that, and then it cuts to Mike turning around, or Jared turning around and is like, so you don't know about any of the natural deaths that have happened in there?
Yeah. What I like is that like the manager, Gerald Olin, is just like, we're at 90% capacity all the time. We don't need our,
Yeah, it's not a money thing.
We don't need you to come and stay here. We don't need any more people trying to come and stay here. And he's just like, okay, so you've read about those ones. What about the 32 natural deaths?
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, hang on. What? He's like, yeah, there's been 32 natural deaths in there as well. One of them, a man drowned in his own soup. Yeah. And he's like, well, how do you drown in soup? And he was like,
Man fell asleep.
Yeah. And he's just like, listen, those are the deaths. You've read about the ones that are reported, like people jumping out of windows, people, hanging themselves, cutting their throats, all this stuff.
And the one, though, he makes a big point of that one when your man slit his own throat. He's like, in a fit of insanity, he tried to stitch himself back together.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the first deaths as well. Like, that's one of the big ones.
That was the first one.
That's the first one, yeah. He cuts his own throat and then he tries to stitch it back together and bleeds out.
Because he was a sewing machine salesman.
Yeah. So he's trying to convince him he's, here's an $800 bottle of
bourbon.
They don't say it's bourbon, but it is bourbon.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, here's this, and he's like, here, I'll give you all access to all this information, and you can write your book. You can go stay in 1404. It's exactly the same as 1408. If anyone ever looks into it, you can write all that, and no one will be any of the wiser. And it really shows that
he doesn't want them there.
He's like, listen, I just don't want you to stay there. He's like, I won't tell anyone you didn't stay there. You'll be able to write your book. Here's all the information, and you can write all the stuff you want, but just don't stay there. And he's like, listen, just let me stay there. And he eventually admits, listen, it's not for your safety. It's not for the hotel's reputation. It's selfish. I don't want to clean up the mess.
Yeah, and to be fair, if you've cleaned up, what did he say? He's had 12 deaths and 9 deaths on his watch since he's been there.
Yeah. And he said
he's the one that sealed it up.
Yeah, he won't let anyone else stay there. But he's like, I don't want to clean it up. Like, I'm in the business of hotels. I'm not in the business of,
a coroner.
I don't want to clean that up.
Now, what I like here as well is that he makes a point to be like, we do turn it down once a month. We're in there for no longer than 10 minutes. 2 maids go in, they'll turn it down, and I'll stand at the door. The door doesn't close. But then he jumps to the maid.
It's not 2 maids. It says, because they obviously only have 10 minutes, so that you wouldn't get the whole, like, the size of the room. It's not. He says they work in pairs, so it's obviously more than 2. So he's bringing in,
a crew, maybe,
multiple pairs, and he's like, they work in pairs. The door stays open, and we are in and out in 10 minutes.
Well, you'd suggest, say, mate, right, there might be more. The room is big, but there might be more. There might be 2. But at minimum, there's going to be 2.
There's minimum 2, and then I would say you're working with 1 per room. So you're probably talking, the bathroom is quite big, so you're probably sticking 2 in there, 2 in the bedroom, 2 in the sitting room, and then whatever, maybe 2 others. But you're talking kind of a good crew in there to turn that down quickly and then get out.
It's only a light turn down, he said, change the sheets and thing, whatnot. But
keep
it. It's not being used. Yeah,
stop dusting and stuff. He's just like, let's just get out of here.
Yeah, but then he was like, one of the maids got locked in the bathroom for no more than a couple of minutes, and Mike turned around and go, "What, she come out dead? No, blind."
She stabbed her eyes out
with a scissors.
Yeah,
that tells you there's something fucking wrong.
Yeah, he's really making the point, and he's like, listen, like, really just don't stay there. And Mike is just insistent, so he goes, just give me the key. And he's like, right, fine. Here's the key. But he gives him another little bit of information. He's like, nobody lasts more than an hour in there.
Yeah.
He's like, that's just the way it is. He's like, how long are you planning on staying? 1 night. And he's like, nobody lasts more than an hour. But he brings him up in the elevator. Obviously, there's no 13th floor, which is, for anyone who's ever been to the States, that actually is very common over there. They don't have a 13th floor.
Is it actually?
Yeah, they don't have the 13th floor in most places. The 13th floor is just the 14th floor.
I didn't actually know that was a thing. I just thought it was.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a thing either. And then I went to, like, I think it was the Empire State, and there's no 13th floor.
Really?
It goes 12, 14. They just, superstition, they just don't have it.
I was always sure that's why they done the 131 over here in the cars.
It is. Well, that is why they did it. And they
said
to
keep it going then.
They said that was the reason, but the real reason was money grabbing. Like, here's a reason we can do it, and we're going to keep doing it. But he brings him up, and then he gets out of the elevator, and Olin stays in the elevator, and he's like, "Are you not come with me?" He's like, I don't. This is as close as I go to that room, unless it's that time of the month for turn down. Like, that is it. Like, I do not go past this elevator.
That's definitely a period joke right there.
It kind of is, but at the same point, like, it shows he won't even get off, because that's not the only room on that floor. All the other rooms on that floor, he won't even get off to go near them.
Yeah.
He makes the point of, like, I don't get off at this floor except when I'm going to that.
Yeah.
He is like, I don't go near it.
Yeah. What I like here is the scene that they do as he stops talking, and then, like, he turns to talk to him again, and the doors are closing. He's like, "I'll call you about those Knicks ticket," and the doors just close.
Yeah.
And he's gone.
What I like is that he's you see him, like, reading through the papers and stuff as he's walking along, and you see
1402, 05.
Yeah, you see a couple of the doors go past, but you see like a cleaner coming towards him.
Yeah.
And he just keeps walking and just kind of ignores her. And then he kind of bumps into like one of the little seats outside a set of elevators.
And he's back at where he was.
And he's back at where he was, so he walks it again, but he doesn't seem to notice that.
But what I like
then
here
we
is
see, like, empty dishes on the ground of, like, with flies buzzing around it. Yeah.
But what I like here is when he gets back to the elevator, as soon as he gets back there, them elevator doors open, as if to say,
"Now's your chance." Yeah. But he doesn't seem to notice this, and it's not referenced kind of again. He just keeps walking on.
That to me is left there, that the cleaners don't go to that floor, like, at all.
Well, they must, because the other rooms are used.
Are they though? I know you see. I know you.
Yeah.
Are you? They say they run at 90% full all the time.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe that floor just isn't used, and maybe that's why he said he doesn't go near it. But we see somebody back into the room down from him with a pram, and they go in backwards with it.
Yeah, and you don't see anything else then.
Yeah, so we see him go in. He goes into the room and he settles himself down, sort of thing.
As you do.
And he has the voice recorder out, and he says it himself. He's like, listen, he did a good job, very aggressive opening, like trying to sell it to me, really good. And you can tell, he still doesn't believe, and he's like, they did well. Like he had me going there for a little bit, but now that I'm here, I can just tell there's nothing. So he starts looking around, and it's huge. The bathroom has 2 sinks
and a shower and a toilet. Well, no, to be fair, now when I stayed in International Drive in Florida, the thing had 2 sinks.
Yeah, it's not something common, but that's only in quite
fancy
kind of fancy ones. You'd have 2 sinks in your one bathroom.
To me,
but you can also see it's one bathroom, which is beside like the bedroom, but then there's like this huge sitting room as well.
Yeah, well, no, like that's what I'm trying to think there is, right? So he's staying in that hotel. It's going to be an expensive hotel. Is that a basic room, or is that a high-end room?
It seems to be quite a basic room in terms of like, they didn't, it's not considered like one of the presidential suites or anything.
Yeah. So it's just basically a room that any Joe Soap gets.
It seems to be that, because he says 1404 is the exact same. So you're thinking like this must be quite the standard. And there's a great line here when, before he goes up, they're still in the office, and he's kind of saying to Mike is saying to Gerald, he's like, so what's the story? Is it poltergeists, ghosts, this, that, and the other? He's like, nope, none of that. He's like, the room's not haunted, it's evil. It's an evil fucking room, and like that is it. He is just like, listen, there is not like, it's not something haunting it. It's the room. The room itself is the problem.
Yeah, like it just doesn't. It's just left then to you to think. Well, it can't just be a room that's haunted.
But he also explains that he gives him the key, and he's like, oh, it's nice, a nice touch, rustic. And he's like, electronic cards don't work on it. Electronics don't work in the room.
Yeah, that's like, this is what I find funny. He stated that, and he made that a big thing, but yet
there is a bit later.
The alarm clock is working. His laptop works a little bit later on. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, see, the alarm clock. See, I think you could probably like.
You see him rip it out of the wall.
Yeah, but it's it does. It is electronic in a way, but at the same time,
I think I don't know. Does that mean signals don't work?
Yeah, I read it more as like signals don't work, and the key cards and things like that don't work. Like newer electronics don't work, because those alarm clocks would be quite old. That sort of style.
I love that type of alarm clock. I'd love one of them.
What I like is that he's, he goes into the room and he looks around it, and then he opens the window and he just has a quick look out, and then the alarm clock plays one song. Yeah,
the music here for this from is it the Carpenters? We've only just begun.
Yeah, that plays, and he kind of jumps and conks his head on the window.
Yeah.
But he turns around and there's 2. Like on the pillow of the bed, there's 2 little chocolates.
Now, this was done brilliantly, because you see him lying on that pillow a couple of seconds beforehand.
So it's not there, yeah. And he notices that. He looks at it and he's like, okay, they've put something they've put something here. And he's like, that's very, and he says it to himself, he's like, that's very good. That's very, very good.
Yeah, but then like there's the part there we missed when he first goes in. He goes into the bathroom and he takes tissue.
Yeah, he takes a little bit off. Wipes his neck because he's sweating to bits.
Yeah, because and then when he goes from having the chocolates, he goes into the bathroom and the toilet paper's folded in that weird pointy triangle thing again.
Yeah, and he's like, he's like, right. So they went into the bedroom, into the bathroom.
So they have to be in the sitting room.
He's like, so they must have come back out when I went in, and then they're in the sitting room. So he runs into the sitting room and he opens the press.
Yeah.
And there's no one there. And he, then he's sitting down and he's making observations on the room, like there's paintings, three different paintings. One is like of a ship out at sea. One is
it's a Whistler type painting, and we know that from Mr. Bean.
Yeah, and he's like, and then there's the foxes and the hounds here, and then there's one of a mother reading stories to her children, but it's in like a quite creepy looking fashion.
That's the Whistler one, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just kind of, he's just talking about the room, and he's like, yeah, it's a good setup, and they do a good job, and this is his job. He's recording so that he can write his book on it. But
he has to get a thing, or he doesn't need.
But he starts feeling quite warm, so he's like, I'll go over and fix the thermostat, and it's stuck at 80 degrees, which is 8 degrees Fahrenheit, obviously.
It's probably 30 degrees, 20 degrees, 20,
yeah, it's something like, I don't know what that actually is, but
something ridiculous for a room.
It's meant to be hot anyway, and you can see that he's sweating, like, and rubbing the sweat off himself. So he rings down to reception, and they're like, would you like to check out? And he's like, no, I don't want to check out. I want someone to come up here and fix this. It's too hot. And then it goes like dark, and he's sitting there recording away to himself. And I was like, how long is this guy taking to get up here to fix this? But it's just him sitting in the dark. That's all it is. Yeah,
and then, you see him with the light then as well.
Yeah, he then turns the light back on and opens the door, and your man's just standing there, and he's like, thermostat's here. He's like, I know where it is.
Yeah, I ain't going in this room.
You're going to fix it? I'm not going in there. And he's like, listen, all you got to do is take that panel off and just give it a little tap.
Well, do you know what? Where he turns around, he's like, the mercury is just changing out so it doesn't touch the switch, and you're like, here. Yeah. And mercury in a thermostat. It probably was normal back in the day, but.
And that's what he says. He's like, look, they're all just old rooms. So he's just like, listen, just give it a tap. So he gives it the tap, and he's like, you're a genius. Let me just get you a tip.
Oh, he's gone.
Your man's gone, and he goes over to the door and looks out, and he's like, where's? Now, when he goes to open the door the first time, he's like, he can't get it open, and it kind of like rips it open a bit. Now that could be down to sweaty, like he puts that down kind of to himself, of like sweaty hands and stuff like that.
An old door.
Yeah, so he's he's still not believing. He's just kind of like, yeah, this is just fair play, grand. This is nothing. And then he goes over to the window, and he has another look outside it, but sound is gone.
Yeah, you just can't hear anything. You can't hear the cars or anything.
And then he screams out the window, but can't hear himself.
Yeah, and then the thing slams on his hand.
Then the radio plays again, and the window slams down his hand. Obviously, cuts his hand up quite badly.
I don't know. Anybody that's ever caught their hand in a door or something will feel that.
Yeah, but he obviously, tries. He rushes to the bathroom. He's like, I need to wash my hand. There's blood all over.
Yeah.
So he turns on the tap.
The cold tap on.
Put the cold tap on. Then it becomes searing hot. He rips his hand away, and the tap like explodes off, and hot water shooting everywhere, burning him.
Yeah, and he throws a couple of towels on it. Hits it a couple of kicks.
He finally gets it to kind of turn off, and then he wraps his hand in something and runs out, and he's just like,
I need to check out.
He's given up now. He's admitted that the room's beating him here. And he's like, right, I need to check out. So he rings down to them, and they're like, yeah, we'll get the manager now, and it starts playing this other stuff, and then it just hangs up.
Yeah,
and he's just like, oh, for fuck's sake. And then he looks at the clock, and the clock, he's ripped the clock out of the wall by this point, and it's gone down to a countdown of 60, which is, as we learned, 1 hour is what people last in the room.
But like, see, that would make sense if that's done in the very first minute of him walking in.
See,
like, so no one's lasted more than an hour, right? So he's in that room probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes at this stage.
I'd say he's in there close to the hour. I think he's been there an hour.
Yeah, no, it's starting to drive him mad now. But like,
I think that's the point.
No one's lasted an hour, right?
But I think that's the point. I think it's that he passes the hour.
And then
now he's stuck. And now he's stuck in the room. The room would have let him leave
after the hour,
before that first hour was up.
Yeah, maybe that's probably a good point. Actually,
that's the way I always viewed it, because it let him, when he got the door open to.
He could have left.
He could have left then, and he didn't.
Yeah, that's actually a really good. I never thought about it that way.
I always thought of it as, you've used up the hour.
Now you're stuck.
And now you're on an hour countdown. And this is where we start seeing the actual power, I suppose, of the room, and the shit that it does to him. But he's already admitted that the room has bested him now.
Yeah, so he's told the room, or whoever's on the phone, which you later learn to be the room.
Yeah, he's already admitted, like, it's beaten me. I just want out.
I need to go to the hospital.
But he slowly starts to kind of lose his mind here.
This movie is a great movie if you like the likes of, you know, where you see in Joker, the descent to madness.
Yeah.
This here does it very well. Like, to me, this here does the 5 stages of grief and grief really well, and depression really well. Like, obviously you see him as anger. He has anger, depression, bargaining, acceptance, and then obviously denial is the first one. So he's denying this room hasn't got anything.
Yeah.
And now he's moved to anger because he's getting pissed off with it.
Yeah, and, you know, he thinks, you know, this is a joke, like, fair play all, and, like, let me out.
Yeah, it's time now.
Now he's starting to, he's getting into it. What I like is that he slowly starts to send it. It's not like straight away complete madness. He's like, right, something's happened, and he tries to reason to himself. He's like, I've been poisoned. He's like, he gave me the drink. Did he drink any? The chocolate, was it the chocolate? And he's trying to, you know, I'm hallucinating. He just says it to himself. I'm hallucinating.
I just have to write it out now. But what I like here is, like, you see the sweat pumping out of him at this stage.
Yeah, and we know he's fixed the thermostat at this point.
Yeah.
Or at least he feels he has.
Yeah.
Then he goes to the window and he looks across, and, you know, there's someone across the way.
Yeah.
And he's like screaming. He's like, hey, waving his hands, and the person eventually gets up and comes to the window.
This scene is brilliant.
Yeah, because it looks like it actually is a person at the start.
Yeah, well, it doesn't actually thing, and then, like, you notice that the person is copying him.
Yeah, and then he's eventually, like, he kind of cottons onto that. He's like, they're doing exactly what I'm doing.
And then you see things coming behind him.
Well, he takes the lamp and he holds it under his own face. And we can see his face across the way, but his face across the way isn't the same. It's like, it's kind of evil looking, sort of. I don't know if you noticed that. It's a dark, you know, like, it knows it's got him. Yeah. Whereas his face is kind of panicky, and, like, his actual face is kind of panicky about it. Whereas that one's kind of smiling and has, like, a darker tone to it.
Yeah, it's got that sinister kind of.
Yeah.
You're done now. And
then he sees something creep up behind it, and he's like, "Hey, watch out!" Yeah. And then he turns around, and it's behind him as well.
Yeah, like this scene, I know they have to put a couple of jump scares into things like this to make it work. That one was done so subtly, but well, because you see it happen there behind your man, and you're like, "Oh shit!" And you turn around, and it's just there again. Like, you very rarely see a double jump.
Yeah, and it backs him into the corner, which is kind of when he starts saying, "Oh, it was the drink." He, you know.
Yeah.
He starts trying to bargain. This is where he's bargaining. He's like, it's not real. He's done this by, you know, giving me spikes. Like, he spiked something.
$800 bottle of bourbon.
He spiked me somehow, and I'm hallucinating. Like, whatever he's given me is causing this. But he's like bargaining with himself and with the room to say this isn't real. And then he sits down on the bed, and old home movies start to sort of play.
This here is a real fucking heart ranger. This one
is where you know. But this is where you know that it's, you know, he has to just accept, you know, like, this is the room, because
no way that could be there.
Like, well, how would anybody, you know, get that videotape?
Yeah, so it's a video of him videoing a little kid and a woman, which you later learn to be his wife.
And his child,
And it cuts between that to them being in.
Them eventually her being in the hospital because she's quite sick, and telling her, you know.
Yeah, and then
you will get better. Don't worry, like, you'll be fine.
And then she was like, "What will you do when I'm gone? I will, like, go to heaven and all." And you're like, okay.
Yeah, we learned that, you know, she's incurably sick, and
we don't find out what it is, but it's left to your imagination as to what it is.
From here, you can put 2 and 2 together. You know, he left New York. Yeah. His wife lives there. Yeah. Their child passed away. Put 2 and 2 together.
This here is where the first time that this movie really shows you it's just a movie about the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah, pretty much it is. And we, you know, he sees this, and then we see a little later one where it shows a flashback of him leaving her.
Yeah, well, yeah, that becomes quite a potent scene later on.
It does, but we see him leaving her, and then we see his dad.
Yeah.
Which we know he didn't have a great relationship with because of the
book.
We learned that from the first book, and he points that out here. His dad is like, you cannot leave her, like she's grieving as well, and he's like, you're all trying to boss me around, like, and you just see that he didn't have that relationship.
There was no, it was all just about him.
Yeah, he was very self-involved. It was all just about him. But after that, kind of the whole home movie kind of starts to play. His mind just continues to devolve, where he's trying to find things out. Like he hears the baby crying in the next room.
He's calling for help through the vents.
Calling for help through that, and then he has to like block out the sound. And then he goes over to the door, which always has the escape route map on it. So it's like, right, I'm here. He's like, the next room over is that one, and he counts the steps from his window to the wall.
Yeah, I don't know how he thought this one was gonna work.
Well, the wall, which is now like cracked and bleeding.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's 9 to that, so it'll be another 9 to the next window. Which that makes sense because the rooms are identical, so that would make sense.
But the room would be opposite. No. The next room probably wouldn't be. The window wouldn't be right close to the other one. I wouldn't think. It would be the far side. No.
No, because there's 2 windows in each room. Because he has the window in his bedroom, and then the window in the So he knows, it's, and even if it's an extra couple of steps, he knows, it's just over there. So I have to do, he says 18 steps. You're talking maybe a couple of more. So he gets out on the ledge and starts moving his way across.
Right. This is at this stage, just before this, you see him with the bottle of bourbon, and it's about a quarter gone.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to be doing after drinking that is standing on a ledge, 13 floors up.
Yeah, but I think this is the point of how
he's lost it now.
He's completely gone. So he's trying to get across to this next room, and he makes it there. And he's like, where's the window? And he looks across. It's just blank wall, and the only 2 windows in the whole wall are his room.
Yeah, the camera work in this is brilliant.
So he has to make his way back.
Yeah.
And just as he gets back, something slashes at him, which is one of the old victims, which we've seen the victims. This is how they died.
Now, remember when they were in Owen's office and he tells them about the first person that died?
Yeah.
Your man Grady O'Malley.
Yeah.
There's another throwback to The Shining. Because Jack Torrance is the caretaker in The Shining's name is Grady.
Oh, jeez. There's a lot of throwbacks on this, actually, to the...
Yeah. There's another one that comes up later on, and I'll drop that when it gets there.
But he gets back to the thing, and he kind of stumbles on the ledge. And the thing is that nobody is down below. Like, normally if you've seen somebody hanging off a ledge, and you were down below, you'd make noise about it. You'd make a fuss.
Oh shit! Yeah. Well, you mightn't even notice that because it looks like he's down like an alleyway. Well, no, actually no, because when he looks out, he's looking over the main road.
Yeah. So the thing is that somebody would have seen. Like, you might not have noticed that straight away, but you'd have noticed some guy making his way across and then making his way back.
Yeah, there's something going on here.
Nobody's noticed.
Yeah.
But he pulls himself back up, and like throws himself back in the window, which then shuts behind him.
Yeah, and then that's it.
He goes back to the door, and we see that you are here, and it's the only room.
Yeah, and then the windows walled
The windows become all walled up and everything, so he's just trapped in this room.
Yeah, he's in major trouble now.
But he thinks to himself, the vent.
I love this though. Like, he can see something in the vent.
Yeah,
and it looks like a camera, and he's like, "Owen's doing this. It's a camera."
So he climbs himself up into the vent.
Yeah, and he's just wobbling away around.
He goes over, looks down into one room. He looks down into the first room, which is the room next door to him that is meant to have the woman with the baby. And when he looks down, the woman looks up, and it's his wife and the baby.
This here is the scene I was talking about where he throws it back, where you see him when he was with his dad.
Yeah.
Or he's like, "You went for a packet of smokes."
Oh, yeah.
This is where you see it now. Because when you hear her talking, she's like, "Oh, where are you going?" She's like, "I'm going for a packet of smokes."
Yeah.
And then he's like, no. She looks up and then he just moves on.
And then he moves on to the next one, which he looks down onto his dad.
Yeah.
And then we see the scene of him standing there with his dad saying, like, you always tell me what to do. And
yeah, his dad calls him a bullshit writer.
Yeah. And so he keeps moving around and he eventually comes across a body.
Yeah.
A sack of a body. I don't really know. It's not a body, but it's not a skeleton either.
It's like a mummified kind of
dusty body, yeah.
Yeah. And like if you've ever watched a horror movie, you know what's coming now once he gets close to that.
But see, the thing is, if you saw that and you were in this situation where things had been going weird, the last thing you're not gonna go up and touch it, which is what he does. He goes up and touches it, and he notices the name on it, and it's the first person that ever.
Grady.
Yep, it's the first person that ever dies, and it comes to life and starts chasing.
The camera work here, because when he pops up, his throat is open.
It's open,
there's
but
not fully. Of tiny little wires.
There's little wires as he tries to stitch himself back. It chases him, and what I like here is that it's not like a normal chase scene. He goes back and it chases him the first bit, and then he looks over his shoulder and it's gone, and you're like, oh, it's just a hallucination. Like it's just a hallucination. But then it cuts to Grady in another part of the vent, and he's like looking around the corner,
and you see him, and then he's like, yeah.
He's like looking around corners and going, okay, I'm free. And then he starts crawling along again, and eventually Grady's behind him again and grabbing at his ankles.
He gets a boot in the mouth for good measure.
Yeah, smashes his skull open and then drops back down into the room itself again.
Howie doesn't kill himself here because he goes head first down that vent.
Yeah, but he flips over and lands on the table on his back.
That was the best Dudley Boy impression.
Yeah, Dudley Boy's taught him well. But as all this is happening, he eventually goes to the little mini fridge, which as we said, he always goes to the little mini fridges to take out whatever drinks.
He's already gone to it at this stage because he makes a reference to the beer nuts being £8, and he takes them out and eats them, but it's stacked.
Yeah, but he opens it now and he sees it as completely empty, and this is where I think there's great camera work. He sees it as empty. But it pulls out again, and we can see him, ripping at this fridge that is full of stuff. But it pans back in a little bit, and he still sees it as empty. And he has the conversation with Olin in the fridge. Yeah,
wait. This here, I think, is another little throwback towards It, where he done the trick with Prince Albert in a can.
I think so as well, because he speaks to it, and Olin is just like, you said you wanted to stay here. You don't even believe in it.
Yeah. So like that's another one of the little throwbacks that I found when rewatching this. But obviously he goes off and it cuts on. Then like he has this conversation. Olaf is blamed him.
Yeah, he says you wanted this. Like this is what you wanted.
Yeah, and he's like, I want out.
I want out. And then the room goes like frozen.
Yeah, because like you see the thermostat going down slightly.
Yeah, and this is where it gets it eventually freezes, and he thinks to himself, "Oh, my phone." So he takes his phone out. No,
phone doesn't work.
Takes out the laptop.
Yeah.
Or sorry, well, it's not frozen yet. It's now it's cooled down, so it's starting.
Well, no, he's wrapped up in the blanket when he gets the thing, and he has the little fire lighting, and he's burning the files.
I think that's the second time though, because the first time he gets it open, it's not frozen yet, and he talks to the wife.
No, it's nearly frozen when he does it, isn't it?
I think it's cooled down, so it's at like 30 now.
Oh right, yeah.
And he talks to the wife, and he's like, "I'm in this hotel," and she's like, "Wait, you're in the city?" And you're in the city, and he's like, "Yeah, it's work. I need you to get me out of here. Like,
call the police."
Yeah, and she's like, "I'm in work. Can we talk about this later?" No. And she's like, "Listen, I'm on my way. I'll be there in 15 minutes." And he looks at the clock, and there's 14 and a bit minutes, and he says,
"It's not enough time."
That's not enough time. But then the camera tricks itself into a new version of him talking.
Yeah, this was brilliant. A little bit of camera work, and he's like, "Yeah, come to the hotel. Don't even ask. Just come straight up."
Yeah, don't even tell them that you're looking for. Like, just come straight up. I'm room 14. No, just come straight up and come in.
So to me, that's saying like the room needs people.
The room wanted to punish him.
Yeah.
And it knew how to. And see, this is what I know we said earlier that it said electronics don't work. I think the room allowed this electronic to work solely for the fact
to get her there.
To get her there.
Yeah,
so
no,
that
that's
had
what I mean.
another
Like,
victim.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But the room needed to kill people in a way.
Like it was looking for more victims, but
Yeah.
we see all this happen, and then the room
Fills with water.
becomes kind of like frozen, and we see him in the wrapped up in his blanket, and he's like, I'm in the last stage of hell, and he's like bargaining again with himself of like, no, this is what's happening. And
yeah, to me that was more the acceptance part.
Yeah, like he knew he was like, I'm dead,
done.
like, and he's like, this is it, like I have to do this and all this sort of stuff. But then the computer works again, and she says, I'm on the way.
Yeah, and then she was saying the police are there and there's no one in 14I.
Yeah, she's like, the police are there, they've gone up, there's no one in 14I, like there is no room, they're in the room. See, so I think that I think that's not real. I don't think she's in contact with him again. I think that's
the second time. No, I don't think so.
The room getting at him.
Yeah, I think that's him thinking, the room playing him to be,
she's on the way.
Something's happening.
Yeah, she is on the way. And he's like, no.
Don't come up.
And what we see is his daughter comes.
Well, no, the room fills with water.
No, because the daughter comes at him first, where he's holding her.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, don't she's like, don't ever let me go. And he's like, at first he's like, you're not my daughter.
Yeah.
So again, denial.
Yeah.
And then
he accepts it.
Then he moves along to denial, and then he's angry, like, I know you're not my daughter. Then he kind of moves on to the next stage, and he drops to his knees, and he's like, no, I do love you,
Yeah, it goes denial, anger, his depression.
Yeah, which you can see the tears in his eyes, like of reliving what happened.
He's bargaining to try and get her to stay.
Yeah, he's like, you don't need to go, like, I have you here, I have you forever.
This bit was the worst bit, which was like, well, can you and mom come with me?
Yeah, and you see, this is like, she's dead.
Yeah, this is it. Like, he knew
the room has got him, and it's bringing the wife.
Yeah, it's gonna take the family with him.
Yeah, but then she dies in his arms, and
he's like, that's when he turns around. He's like, you're making me do it again, making me live it again.
Yeah, and it like burns. But then he looks, he's like lying on the floor, completely out of it now, and all the
whole room looks like it's been nuclear bombed at this stage.
Yeah, and all the pictures are now moving. So like the one with the parent, like reading the book to her children. That's
the dogs you can hear.
The dogs are like barking, and like the ship has like capsized and all that. And then the wave comes. He walks towards that picture again. And this huge wave knocks him back.
Yeah, it fills the room up.
And it looks like he's drowning, and then he wakes up on the beach.
Yeah, and then in the hospital.
He wakes up on the beach, which was a scene we seen earlier.
Yeah, the guy runs over, exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Then he wakes up in the hospital, and the wife is there, and she's like, oh no, they called me, and I must still be listed as your next of kin. And he explains to her, like, I was in this room, and it was like all this stuff was happening, and she was there. And he's finally accepted what happened, and he's making amends with her, and they're out on the dinner, and she's like, you should write a book about this, which would again be similar to his very first book, where it's writing about his real life experiences and how he dealt with things.
He notices the cleaner or the waitress.
He notices her first, and then she gets his attention back, and when he looks back, it's just a normal waitress.
Yeah, it's one of the faces you see in the hotel though.
Yeah,
and then you're like, as watching it outright, you're looking at it going,
yeah,
they just fucking with him big style here.
Something's going on here. And then he rings the editor, and he's like, have you got a new book? And he's like, oh no, I've got a whole new thing. And he's like, well, make sure you get it to me soon.
Yeah.
So you see him writing up the book, and then he goes to the post office to
this is brilliant. This scene here is
he goes to the post office to get his stuff, and he's looking through it, and he notices same birthday card.
The dolphin one isn't there though.
Brochures, and then he's like, where's the card? So he goes back, and he's like, is there was there a postcard?" And your man's like, "No, if you dropped one, I would have noticed it."
Yeah.
So he now accepts, oh, that was just deja vu, and I must have imagined that, and it just happened to come true. But there's no room.
What that's left there to you is, did he have that vision when he drowned?
Yeah, like so. I like that they're like, it's replayed that part of his life.
I love how.
As if he'd never got that letter, and then he goes back to the post office with the manuscript, and he's like, "I want to post this," and your man's like, "Close today," and it's the guy who offers to take his bag.
Yeah, who is obnoxiously rude to.
Yeah, well, he's obnoxiously rude to everyone, pretty much. That's kind of who he is. But then they start knocking down the walls of the post office.
Yeah, well, he turns around, your man swings a bat at the glass, and then the lads just tear it down.
And as it gets teared down, you see parts of the room starting to envelop, and they're ripping up the floorboards, and it's the carpet of the room.
Yeah.
And eventually, he's back in the room.
Yeah, there's one other.
I think that's a great little twist, the way they do that. Like, he thinks, the room's fucked with him so much that it's like, you're out, you're free.
He was never actually there. Like,
this was all a hallucination. And then it's like, nah, it wasn't. Get back in here, mate.
Now, there's the one other thing that they do here is just before he leaves for the waves, where it cuts out and you see the grave of his daughter.
And
it has his grave beside him.
Yeah.
That's the other throwback they do in It the Clown.
Yeah.
Where they're driving into Derry and they see the 7 graves, and obviously Richie's one is gone.
Yeah.
And the thing, I was like, Stephen King's just some genius to be able to do things like that.
Like, loves to tie his own stuff into other bits.
Yeah. Now there's a couple other ones that we missed just before we go to the end of this. There's like, when he was, I have it here. When he was when the phone rings just before it melted, the phone says, "We have all your friends. We've killed all your friends."
I think that's a little bit later.
Oh no! That's coming up now. Yeah.
Yeah, but he gets back into the room and the time is essentially up. There's a couple of seconds left, and he's just trashing this room, like just smashing everything, because he's now been brought back into it.
Yeah, it's just,
and then he lays down.
The room's totaled.
He lays down on the floor, and we see the clock count down to 0, and then it goes back up to 60, and the room's completely normal again. And he's just lying on the floor, and nothing wrong with the room. It's perfectly normal. And then he gets the phone call, and it's like, we've got your friends, we've got all this. You're going to relive this hour over and over. If you don't, you either kill yourself or.
There was that scene there where the phone rings and it's like, "This is 8. We've killed all your friends." Is Stephen King in the Dark Tower?
Yeah,
that's where that came from.
But we see, it basically, the room is telling them, like, the only way out of this is just to kill yourself.
I love the way it was, though, because it was like, we have the express checkout.
Yeah, and then it shows his head. It shows his the noose, but his head is like in the center of it, and then it goes to the bathroom, and there's another noose, and his head, you see it like lines up with his head perfectly.
Like, I was looking at when they ring and it's like the express checkout, it's beside the window, and I was like, did I mean to jump out the window? And then he turns around and it's there.
But they show that's 2 ways, and then they show the grave of his daughter and him standing over looking at his own grave and things like that.
Yeah, it's done so well.
And see, the way it resets the hour, this is why I think at the start he was in the room for an hour, and he gets 1 normal hour, then it gives him, then it resets to an hour, and so starts fucking with him.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, it's just going to keep reliving. Like, it's not going to be the same hour, but it's going to be another hour of just terror.
Torture. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be worse, I'd say.
He eventually just puts the phone down and he says,
"I win."
You win, but not like, I'm not checking out the way you think. And he hangs up the phone, and he makes a Molotov out of the bourbon that he's been given, and throws it into the bedroom.
But this thing ignites everything.
It goes up everywhere. What I like is that he then picks up the cigarette, which he makes a point of saying,
I don't smoke anymore.
I don't smoke. It's just an old superstition. And I'd wonder, is that from, do you know when they said earlier, I'm going for a smoke, going to buy smokes? Is this the last smoke from that pack of smokes, I'd wonder?
I was more thinking, was that one of the reasons that the daughter got cancer, or he blames himself for her getting cancer or something?
It could be that as well, but like,
yeah, it could be about the smokes, yeah.
Like, he's never finished that last pack of smokes, because when he finishes that, then he should technically,
that should be it.
He should be going home. Like, that's the end of it for him. Like, this is the last one, and that's what's he's clinging to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They never allude to that, but it's just something that I kind of was like, oh, maybe that's the reason. But the room goes on fire, and he just says, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me.
Yeah, he's taking an inanimate object with him.
Yeah, good but job. we see like the room going on fire, puts on the sprinklers, and he's just like, that's not going to do it. And then he opens the window,
which lets the fire, the air
lets
in.
the air in, which makes the fire even bigger, and it blows out the window. And we see his wife in the taxi below.
And she's like, what's going on? She's like, I don't know.
And she gets out, and she can see the fire in the room. So this is all happened in, less time, because she said she'd be there in about 15 minutes, and then obviously there's a bit of traffic. It's New York. It's obviously traffic, and New York or whatnot, there's going to be heavy traffic, so it takes her that little bit longer. But he's now burnt this room to the ground.
Yeah.
And everyone else in the hotel is just evacuated, and she's telling them, like, my husband's up there, and they're like, yeah, we can't get him.
Left or something.
Yeah, but then the next scene is at the funeral, and we see him laid to rest, and she's obviously upset. And then we see Olin in his car as she's leaving, and he's like, listen, I have some of his personal effects here. And she's like, no, I don't want them. And he's like, listen,
he done us a favor or something.
He's just like, listen, I want you to know that your husband died a hero. Like, what he did can never be repaid, sort of thing. And the other guy's just like,
no,
you're crazy. Like, you're talking about this room. Like,
he was literally going to say, we never have to reopen the room again.
Yeah, well, that's what he was saying. He's like, I've just not sold it, but now we can't because it's been destroyed, and I'm just not going to redo it.
Yeah,
going to leave it as burnt out forever. And then he gets in the car, and he opens the box, and we see the recording, and he plays a little bit of it, and it starts with the first round goes to Mr. Olin, which is something that was actually said.
Yeah.
Then he fast forwards a little bit, and we hear the bits of the
ghosts
of him kind of starting to panic and being like, it's not real, but you can hear the panic in his voice, and then you hear his daughter calling to him.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't think that's not real, because we see earlier in it when he plays the recording back to himself in the room, he's like, there's no windows in the room, which is obviously not true, because there is windows in the room,
Yeah.
So it is the
room.
No,
I think when he goes into that room, I don't think there is a window.
Possibly, but
and he's gone.
See, there has been gone. But there has been people that have jumped out of the windows, so there has to have been windows.
I'd say they bricked them up.
Possibly, yeah. But he sees them as,
Yeah, he sees that they're still there.
Yeah. But not when he first goes in. When he first goes in, he's like, there's no windows.
Yeah. So to me, like, the room has got him almost instantly.
Yeah, it gets him pretty quickly. But when Olin has this open, he then sees a little girl in the rear view mirror of his car, which he then thinks to be, the daughter.
I thought it was him in the back of the car.
No, in the rear view mirror.
In the mirror, in the mirror, yeah.
He sees the daughter, and he's like, is that her? And then he's like, oh, and he's going to join her because, he's going on into the afterlife. And then he moves it. And that's when you get your jump scare of his burnt body
face,
in the back of the car. Which I think is a great scene, because then Olin kind of panics and then closes the lid on the recorder and the stuff that was in that room.
That's it.
And then we see the little girl go off with her actual dad.
Yeah.
And we see Olin has closed this, so it's like, because he opened that, he kind of let the room out a little bit. The room still existed, but it only existed in what was left of what he took out of the room.
Yeah.
And then we get the final image of Mike's ghost in the window of the room, and we hear his daughter call him, and he goes, I'm coming, and he fades away. So he's finally,
yeah, he's at peace. He was in torment.
he'd lived his life in torment since she passed away, and now he's finally gone and joined her. Like, as a horror, it's a psychological thriller more than a horror, because it doesn't rely on a lot of horrors kind of rely on jump scares and things like that. But
it has a couple now, to be fair, like the man slashing at him twice, the woman slashing at him in the window, obviously the mirror.
I suppose technically the mummy up in the vents would kind of be one, but like it's so you know it's coming that you wouldn't jump at it. Like, if you're big into horror, you probably don't really jump at any of them, but like I understand that that's what they are there for.
Oh, to be honest, every horror has to have them. There's very little horrors that are going to be very, very successful without them.
Yeah, they're kind of they're a trope of horror, sort of.
If you do them very subtly,
yeah, which I think they did well here. Like,
they're not shoved down your throat in this one.
Yeah, but then also like a lot of this is built on stuff that's happened in his past, and the room is like in his head, taking things from his past
and throwing them at him,
and making him relive them, which I think, it's more psychological than it is just pure horror. But like, it's still like, this is probably one of the better horrors that's been made in recent years. It is 2007. I always thought this was even a bit older than that, but really, really good one. Like, this is one of my preferred horrors. Like,
for me, I would have liked to find out what was in the room, even if it was at the end of it.
But I think that's kind of the point. I think there is nothing in the room.
But there has to be something to drive people mad.
No, but I think that's the thing. That's kind of the whole point, that there is nothing. It's not something that died there. It's just that the room, for some reason, is just evil. That room is just evil.
So then obviously it's a portal or whatever it is.
Yeah, like, I don't know, maybe in the book or something they give an actual explanation for it, but in the film it's just, because he even says, he's like, it's not a poltergeist, it's not haunted, it's not this, it's not ghouls, it's not anything like that. It's just an evil room.
Yeah, so like, he makes a point to say that because Mike is recording it, and he's saying the thing about poltergeist. He's like, I never said that.
Yeah, he's like, no, it's just the room. The room itself is the problem. And what I liked is that when he does burn the room, you can see the numbers on the metal plating kind of
melting, but staying like, there.
It melts, but it's like a blood dripping melt rather than like an actual melting.
Yeah. I have a couple other ones there just before we sign off. So the standard edition of this movie, I'll give you a guess how long it runs for.
I'm going to assume it adds up to 13 somewhere.
No, well, yeah, kind of. It's 104 minutes and 8 seconds long.
Okay,
so technically it adds up to 13, but it
adds up to 13. But I think that's
1408,
a bit. Yeah, 1408 as well. Yeah.
The wife or ex-wife or whatever
it's
she
still
is,
the wife, because she mentions that he never divorced or never separated.
They're not separated. Yeah. So technically, I think from what I looked up on, I haven't actually read the book, which I'm gonna go and get because I forgot how much I like this movie.
So did I.
She, I don't think, features in the book nearly as much.
Yeah, I think for a film you kind of need that love interest to kind of.
But I think she was 7 or 8 months pregnant. That's why you don't see anything more than sort of hair on her.
Oh, so they were having another child.
Well, maybe. No, she was heavily pregnant in real life.
Oh, sorry, the actress was heavily pregnant. Sorry, okay.
But like, even when the fire's on, you see her standing in front of the car door.
Yeah, they make a point of it. Yeah.
And things like that. Like, they done so well with subtlety and.
Yeah, the camera work in this is brilliant as well. Like
I'd never even heard of this director before this. I don't know. I haven't seen anything else, I don't think, from him.
Yeah, but sure, like, as I said, like, I picked this up solely on the fact that it was a horror and it had Sam Jackson in it. So I was like, I don't see how this could be particularly bad.
Well, it could be, but it was.
Yeah, but like, it's Sam Jackson as well, Like, I know he's had a few films that aren't great, but I enjoy those films anyway. So
yeah, they're always really enjoyable, almost always enjoyable with Sam.
Yeah.
Like, I like John Cusack as well.
I honestly, this is probably one of the better performances of John Cusack, I think.
Well, actually, have you seen Identity?
Yeah, but like I don't know. I still think this is one of his best performances.
Yeah, probably would be. Yeah. The director has a couple other ones. Derailed, Evil, Drowning Ghost. He done The Right with Anthony Hopkins.
I can't say I've heard of most of them, and definitely haven't seen them. So
he done Escape Plan with Arnie and Sylvester Stallone.
I think I'll definitely have to give those other ones that were horror ones that he did a watch, because
The
if they're
Right.
if they're as good as this, or even half as good as this, they'll be good. Like,
if I remember correctly, The Right is Anthony Hopkins is a priest in the Vatican, and he's one of the only last known exorcists.
okay, so it's kind of an exorcism style one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember if I enjoyed it or not. I think I remember going to see it in the cinema.
I tend not to enjoy exorcism ones.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Yeah, I think once you've seen one, it's nearly always the same
story,
and I just I've seen it, so I've seen one, so I'm kind of like, I don't really want to see the other one. That is just the story can't really vary too much from what it is,
Well, that's what I enjoyed actually about the later ones with The Conjuring 1 and 2. They're both exorcism movies theoretically to an extent.
They are, but they're
different.
They are, but they don't focus entirely on the exorcism. There is other bits around it, whereas an exorcism film kind of focuses solely on that. To me, they're not bad. It's just you've seen one, you kind of if you go to watch another one, it's going to be eerily similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of my favorite horror films now, I'd have to say, and I'd forgotten how much I liked it until I rewatched it there recently.
I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite ones, but I do enjoy it, if that kind of makes sense. Like, it wouldn't be one that I'd stick on just to watch something, because it's such an intense movie.
You have to sit down and actually think about what's happening for this one, sort of thing, I suppose.
Yeah, like, it's an intense movie. This movie, once he gets to that hotel, this goes from 0 to level 10 intensity. And
once he's in the hotel, and that's what I like. It kind of builds into that. It's a kind of slow build up until kind of like half an hour or so, and then he's in the room, and that's when it starts to go down. And I do like that.
It goes downhill very quickly.
Yeah, I always like that kind of slower build for horrors. Like where you get a bit of a backstory, you learn what's happening, and then it's like, right, now we're into it.
Yeah. Some of them can be just fun when it goes from 0 to all sorts of fucked up, like you said, Dawn of the Dead.
Like there's nothing wrong with those ones. It's just,
it depends on the marketing of the film, though. Like, it depends on, sorry, not the market, on the subgenre of the film. Like, is it a slasher? Is it zombies? Is it?
I kind of think ones that go from 0 to 100 like straight away are the ones that you don't like, that you can just put on in kind of the background. Like, you don't really need to know the subplot. You don't need to know what's happened.
Yeah, this one you couldn't turn on after an hour and be like, I'm gonna watch this hour.
If you miss the first like 40 minutes of this, it's just some guy in a room like losing his mind, and you're like, hang on, where's all the rest of this coming from? Like, you kind of need to have seen the first half. Whereas if you turn on Dawn of the Dead half an hour in, you're like, okay, everyone's zombies. I'm not entirely sure why they're zombies, but basically zombies, they're stuck in there trying to escape.
Pretty much,
you've worked it out. Like, but as I said, this is one of my favorite ones. And I was really I was glad that I decided to pick this one for the rewatch here.
This is a great pick. Like, going forward with the new process that we're going with, to mix it up in terms of what kind of horrors we're going to do on, is going to be fun.
Yeah. But for this week, that's it. Good luck.